Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Sell More Book Show, episode 539. I'm Brian Cohen from Best Page Forward, and today I am joined by Shelby Leigh, a best-selling poetry author, book marketing coach with hundreds of thousands of wonderful TikTok followers. Shelby, how are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to chat TikTok and social media. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. We became acquainted on TikTok maybe even a couple years back. I've used your wonderful social media marketing services before. What I love is that you like to share. You have had so much success. I'm sure anyone who's listening would love to have even a tenth the number of TikTok followers you have. And they are, and you do not hide those secrets. You share what you're doing, you tell other people about it. Um, you're a poet. Do you feel like that all kind of connects? Because I feel like poetry is kind of shares what's inside. It shares
Yeah.
this connection, but you're also wanting to connect with these authors who see you and look up to you. Do you feel like there's some kind of connection between those two things?
Yeah, totally. I think I've had to learn how to be vulnerable with my poetry, and I kind of apply that with my marketing as well. Like, hey, here's where I've totally failed. Here's where I've messed up. Here's what I've learned from the many years of marketing that I've been doing. So now I'm going to share it with you. So, yeah, I do think I haven't thought about that much before, but I do think that there is a connection there.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, I see you out there. We've had Pierre-Alex Gentil on the show, who's also a
Yes.
successful poetry author.
Awesome.
And I feel like it's the same kind of deal. Like, y- there are a lot of authors who, yep, all they do is write.
Yeah.
And maybe they found some marketing hacks or marketing tips, and they don't want to share it because I guess there's kind of this closed view that there's only so much success to go around. Do you feel like, part of wanting to share what you've done and share what you've learned is in part that worldview that, hey, there is more than enough to go around?
Yes, definitely. I think, community over competition is what I like to say. I think a lot of people say it in this community too, but I think the more we can all learn from each other, like readers don't just read one book or one author. And I think we have that benefit of being able to connect with and work with other authors, knowing that we can all definitely learn from each other's mistakes, each other's successes, and what we're doing on social media. It changes all the time. So being able to have a community of people to network with and discuss what's going on and what's working for each other is so beneficial. So I think that's a really good mindset to have.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to pick your brain today. Um, let's get into the show here. The previous week's question was, how do you provide value to your fans beyond the book itself? I might have to ask you this question too here, Shelby.
Mhm.
And how do you keep people engaged? Tanya Hale said, I'm an illustrator, so I love to create cool art that brings elements of the story to life and invites readers deeper into my fantasy worlds. Dragon emoji. And Lars Hedbor said, my primary fan offering is a book of the month subscription. Depending on the level chosen, the book comes with a recipe card for food mentioned in the book, a map or maps to help readers picture the setting, an artifact related to the book, a discussion guide, and a Zoom meeting to talk about the book with me. Lars, you're giving too much, but I love it. Um, Shelby, how do you provide value to your fans beyond your books themselves?
Yeah, I love this question. And I love those answers too. Those are all great. I'll share kind of how I do this for social media since that's what we'll be talking about today. I
Yeah.
think it's really the little things to build and keep a strong community on social media. So I feature a reader of the week in my newsletter every week, someone who's read my book and tagged me in a photo of it. So I love that to show, keeping people engaged and showing that I appreciate them. Whenever I get nice comments on social media, I'll pin them or I'll share them to my story. will get them involved in like decision making. If I put up like a poll about what the title of a poem should be or which one they like best or like what color for my next book cover, and kind of getting them involved in those types of decisions, I think can show your fans that you value their opinions and you want them to kind of be involved in your journey.
I love all of those things. It struck me the sharing people, adding them to your story if they post about your book.
Yeah.
It made me think about back in the blogging days, when dinosaurs
Mhm.
roamed the internet. I had a really old website created by a service called Site Build It. And one of the things that they had was that you could insert in a essentially a user generated content feature where I would write prompts from back in my writing prompts days, and people would respond to the prompts, which would then create a separate page on the blog just for their post. And it made me think, like, that is what TikTok and Instagram have become in a way, for authors, the ability to generate this user generated content, whether through organically or through influencers, but most of it organic, and being able to then reshare that and make the people feel like, they are a part of the community, and how much you appreciate that they've put your book back out into the internet.
Totally. And I think it encourages other people to share too, because they see other people in the community being shared and all of that, and just
Mm.
encourages that kind of cycle of engagement. So, really valuable.
Oh, super smart, super smart. Folks, you can always answer the question of the week over at the Sell More Book Show After Party or the creakily getting older by the day sellmorebookshow.com website. So let's go into the top story of the week. Shelby, are you ready?
I am ready. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. TikTok awards growth and branding. Quote, social media has been condemned by many for its negative effects, but one positive effect has been its ability to turn readers on to worthy books, reports Bruce Herring for Deadline. This July, TikTok announced their second annual TikTok Book Awards, which recognizes books, shops, and book talk creators, all chosen by readers and fans. The initial shortlist is chosen by a panel of figures from the book world, with winners then chosen by the book talk community. This year, 82,000 people voted, awarding Book of the Year awards to None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell and Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, both books that had risen in popularity because of TikTok in the first place. In a recent video, fantasy YouTuber Bookborn suggests that much of TikTok's value for authors comes from establishing your brand and putting a face to your name, something that seems to be increasingly important for modern authors. While readers and fans of TikTok might find the rise of book talk encouraging and helpful, many authors find the prospect of marketing on social media and TikTok in particular to be challenging or discouraging. Quote, as an aspiring author working on their first manuscript, the advertising and marketing side feels like a giant mountain to climb. It feels mandatory to be successful, as if writing a book wasn't hard enough in the first place. End quote. I feel like after every story we share on this show, we could always have the quote, as if writing a book wasn't hard enough in the first place. But that's why we're here. That's why we've been doing this for 10 years. Shelby, several things in this article, of course. What stuck out to you?
Well, I the TikTok Book Awards is so interesting that they started that, and I think it just shows like that this trend of, not even a trend, just books selling really well on TikTok and TikTok really being a place for readers to find new reads, isn't going away. It just keeps
Mm,
getting stronger. So I think that that's awesome. But I also, at the same time, very much resonate with authors who feel like, oh, it's another platform to market on, or it's video based, which scares a lot of authors as
yeah.
well. So I'm excited to dive into this, but those are the two pieces that kind of stood out for me in this story.
Well, let's talk more about the video based. I'm a follower of your wonderful Shelby Lee poetry uh, TikTok account. You've used a lot of slides, you've used a lot of videos that don't involve your face with the book,
Yeah.
just the book itself, with pictures of the book in slide form, certain poems from your books.
Yeah.
Um, So the thing that I always wonder is, do you think that's poetry specific, or do you think that other authors who are in a variety of genres could avoid the fear of having to do comedy sketches or dances on the platform?
Yes, definitely. And I think you hit the nail on the head by sharing some of the different formats that I've done, because there are lots of different ways to post on TikTok and not be the center of the video if that's something that you don't want to do. There are also many authors who are doing that and doing a great job with it. Um, for me, whenever I first started on TikTok, it was a lot of experimenting and seeing what did resonate with my readers. And it's changed over time. Like
Mm.
voiceovers used to be really popular for my page, and I would just read poems, show them, use my voice in that way. And then slideshows became very popular, and they're really popular for so many different genres, definitely not just poetry. And so hopefully that's a sigh of relief for some people who have listened and didn't want to do videos or tried TikTok videos and it didn't work out, that they did introduce slideshows where users can just swipe through photos. So it's photo based. You add a really exciting or emotional hook at the beginning of the video to attract your target audience, to let them know what this is going to be about, your book or the scene that you're promoting in this video. And that's a very effective way. So definitely not just poetry. That one is something that I'm seeing a lot of fiction writers specifically have success with. With nonfiction, I do tend to see a little bit more face on camera sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
like the authority in their niche or showing their expertise on something, educational videos, things like that. Not always, but that tends to apply a little bit more to nonfiction. So I think the nice thing about the different formats that they have now and the different types of videos that you can do is that there really is something for everyone on this platform.
Oh, I love that. That is helpful. Leads into my hot potatoes of wisdom question number one. Shelby, what simple things can authors do on TikTok to market themselves?
Yeah, well, I think the first place to start after making your account is just spending some time scrolling through the book community on TikTok and getting a feel for the different types of videos that can do well and the different formats that we've already, talked about some in this episode so far. I think the other simple thing, and I say simple because marketing, isn't always the easiest thing. Obviously, a lot of authors really struggle with it. So maybe I'm using simple lately, but I think starting by just thinking about who your audience is and what would be relatable to them is content that does really well on any social media platform. If you can get into your audience's head and show them that you understand who they are and what their likes are, there's so many readers on TikTok. And a lot of us as authors are also avid readers and know what readers enjoy. So if you can relate to them, if you can make them laugh or make them feel some type of emotion related to your book or even just your genre in general, that's how readers understand that you get them and that your books are going to be for them. So, yeah, spend some time researching, scrolling through, and then an activity that you can do like in your first week or do it now if you haven't done it before is to pull some strong hooks from your books. Just go through your book, flip through the pages, and copy and paste quotes from the book that are emotional or exciting or enticing, something that made you feel something while you were writing it yourself,
Mm.
and just pull out those scenes. And as you scroll, think about how you can make videos from those scenes or those quotes from your book. Those hooks are going to be so important. That first second or two of your video to get people really engaged in watching. That's what the algorithm wants to see, is that users are watching your video and they'll show it to more people. So it doesn't have to be complicated, but just start with what you've already written and pull out that gold that you already have in your book, and you'll be on your way to making, TikTok content.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's great advice, and it's not all that different from writing to market. It's TikTok to market. Kind of
Yeah,
see what's already out there. So that's
right.
really great. All right, I'm
Right.
ready for my question.
Sure. So, do you think that you have to be on TikTok or active on the platform to be a successful author?
No, you do not necessarily need any particular platform to be successful. I think that one of the things I've talked about is wanting to do more of what you love in your book marketing. If you love videos, if you love interacting on TikTok, if you've felt like a deep connection to that platform, that community, then yes, it might make sense and that might be your path to success. But there are many paths up the mountain. It doesn't have to be with just one platform. There's people who've had success posting audiobooks to YouTube, people who've had success just by going to in-person events. There's people who've had success in the traditional publishing world, in vendor, the vendor world of getting their books out to specialty stores. There is no shortage of ways to make it in this industry, but you are going to get a lot further if you love the thing that you're doing on an everyday basis. That is the path. So it does not necessarily need to be on TikTok, but it might need to be something somewhere. You have to kind of make that journey of self-discovery on your own.
Yeah, I totally agree. Whenever authors like try TikTok for a month or two and they hate it, I'm like, that is okay. It's not for you. It doesn't have to be. Yes, you could maybe grow to love it if you kept trying. And that's totally up to the author to decide. But there are so many other ways of marketing before TikTok existed. How did authors sell books? Like there's just so many different options. So finding the path that's right for you and something that you actually enjoy is going to make it so much easier to show up and be consistent with it.
Absolutely. 100%. All right, Shelby, the moment you've been waiting for. We're about to go into the lightning round. You came
Mhm.
prepared. Let's go for it.
All right. My sound, because this is how I feel like a lot of authors feel when we're talking about TikTok, is dun dun dun.
Ooh, that's good. That is good. I love that. Perfect. Okay. So, Shelby, how does in the context of you do a great job teaching both Instagram and TikTok. How does marketing your books on TikTok differ from marketing your books on Instagram?
Yeah. Well, okay. So, yes, they're different platforms, but I think over time, the TikTok and Reel similarities have gotten pretty close together.
Mm,
So, with both of those, you can kind of easily repurpose your content, and you might find one does better on one platform than the other. But the same kind of information applies about having that strong hook at the beginning of your video. And so, those are similar, but how they're different is in my experience, I find TikTok is much more successful when you focus on one format of video repeatedly,
mm,
whereas I feel like Instagram offers more variance in your types of posts. They have, just regular single graphic, posts you can share. They have carousels, they have reels, they have stories, and TikTok has stories, but they have not been implemented and improved like Instagram stories have over time. So
right.
I feel like with Instagram, there's a little bit more work that's involved when it comes to the variation of your content. Whereas with TikTok, whenever you do find what works for you, you can repeat that until the cows come home, like I have been doing the past few years on my TikTok page, and still continue to see results. So, and that way, I kind of find TikTok is less time intensive. And once you find what works, it can be even a little bit repetitive. But that's kind of how I found the two platforms to be the most different.
That's super interesting. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. All right, question 2.
So, how do you deal with the constant pressure to post on all of the places all of the time?
I definitely do feel a lot of pressure to be everywhere. I've heard the term, I think this was first in a Grant Cardone book, The 10X Rule, omnipresent, which has stuck with me. But I've realized over time that you don't need to be all the places. You don't need to be every single, every single platform. There was a time where I was trying to post every day to TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And there were some benefits to it. I do think I made some connections there, but I could feel that it was really wearing on me. And I could feel, as we talked about earlier, it wasn't where my heart was to keep up that kind of cadence. I think that I would personally, I'm much better suited to post every so often to each of the platforms. And possibly if I ever got a social media team, then I would be more likely, because someone else was doing those nitty-gritty parts, to get content up there all the time. But for now, I deal with the pressure of wanting to post everywhere by not doing it and just saying that's going to be okay. I hold on to whatever social media gains I can get very, very loosely.
Yeah, that's a great mindset to have. And I only use two platforms as my main platforms too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there's a misconception that you have to be everywhere, and you definitely don't. Instagram and TikTok are my main two, and that's what I've stuck with for years.
Love that. Awesome. Question 3. You've sold tons of poetry books. How do you think selling poetry differs from selling fiction? And of course, how is it similar?
Yeah, well, I think every genre kind of has its benefits and its cons, I guess.
Mm.
I think what makes poetry different is that we can just share like full pages of our books typically because they're like shorter poems, or even if it takes up the full page, and kind of give them away to be read on social media, but people still want the physical book. Like in poetry, physical books still far outsell ebooks, which I think is different from a lot of genres in fiction that we're seeing. And so just being able to show the physical book really helps. Just being able to give away parts of our book on the inside and post poems repeatedly. Like I have some poems in my books that every time I post them, I sell books. And so I've
Mm.
shared them multiple times and things like that. So I think that's something that differs for poets specifically. But I think ways that they're similar is the emotion. You always need to pull out emotion in your marketing,
Mm.
using storytelling in your marketing, pulling out those really either inspiring or emotional scenes of your book that are going to make someone cry or laugh or whatever it might be, give them a feeling. In poetry, of course, that's the case. I write my books with the intention of helping people feel less alone, or helping them feel a certain way about their mental health, which is a topic very prominent in my poetry. And so I think as fiction authors, you also have to think about those moments and that impact that you want to have with your book, and apply that to your marketing as well.
Yeah, I've heard in the emotional moments in fiction referred to sometimes as the heartstring or the heartbeat
Mhm.
moments. And
Yeah,
I love that idea because you can use this in your research process. You can see what kind of emotional moments are getting shared from other books in that
hmm
genre when you're starting to prepare to write in that genre. And you can say, oh, well, better make sure I have something along those lines because obviously readers are resonating with that.
absolutely.
All
Absolutely.
right. I'm ready for my question here, Shelby.
So, when you come up against a wall of a certain amount of royalties, what can you focus on to push past it?
I had to put this question in here because I've been thinking a lot about identity and money story, and I'm woo woo. Like I'll show on the video. I've got a little 7-figure income mug here that I
Love
have.
it.
It's right next to a lemur, a little toy lemur. But I have found that even doing manifesting type things, even holding the goals close and visualizing, they can run into a wall if you have these kind of beliefs inside. And I think a lot of authors who are running up against a wall, whether it's $100, $500, $1,000, hundreds of thousands of dollars, there might be this internal belief that you don't deserve that amount of money, or that the whole imposter syndrome angle, that you can't possibly ever have that money, you can't conceive of it. And these beliefs can come from your family, these beliefs can come from things that happened in your past. And so I think that when you come up against a certain amount of royalties, I think it's about, to a certain extent, reaffirming within yourself that you have done incredible things, that you have done things that pushed beyond those beliefs. You've proven to yourself already that you can go past these barriers, and you can continue to say, this is, I pulled this slightly cribbed from the book Meant for More by Mia Hewitt that I've been reading recently. is essentially the affirmation, I am loved, I am enough, and I am capable. And I've really personally gone towards that, but I've definitely, it might be woo woo, but I've now connected with more people, even just talking about this sort of thing, that are also focused on identity and potential. And I think that we're always looking for a marketing hack, but sometimes the best hack is from within.
Wow. I love that answer. I needed to hear that.
Thank you.
So, yeah, thanks
Um,
for sharing.
it's for all of us.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
thank you. You're very welcome. All right. So Shelby, last one. We'll bring it back to the marketing specifically here for the last question in the lightning round. How do you know which social media platform to focus on, or can you / should you build an audience at more than one at the same time?
Yeah, well, I think it's starting with what you enjoy. And if you haven't used a platform before, you might not know until you try it. But there's so many different platforms that have different format types, like we've talked about. If you like video, TikTok is great, or YouTube is awesome. If you like writing and you just want to stick to writing, Threads continues to grow.
Mm.
X is, less used now, but still there. Instagram, has a combination of video and photos. And so I think just taking a look at what you enjoy and the types of content that you'd enjoy sharing is a good place to start. And then starting with one and getting to know that one very well before you start spreading yourself thin, learning multiple at once. I do think you'll see slower growth if you are spreading yourself across. But you can definitely grow more than one at once. Like once I felt really good about Instagram, I jumped into TikTok and have been able to grow those at the same time over the past few years. But I think it's just a matter of knowing your bandwidth, knowing you don't have to be everywhere, and also knowing that you want to enjoy marketing and the platform that you're on.
Yeah, the enjoyment. Coming back to that, I love that. Um, I think a lot of authors need to hear what you just said about, if you are trying to do more than one platform at once. This could also be ported over to if you're trying to do 2 or 3 strategies and learn them all at the same time. You
Yep.
may grow slower.
Yep.
So hear
Absolutely.
this, listeners, please, please. Hear Shelby's wise words. Awesome. We need a question of the week, Shelby. So, do you have any particular subject you would want to dive deeper into related to either the story or some of these things we've been talking about with TikTok and Instagram?
Oh my gosh.
Even
Um,
just a direction, because I can guide it. Even
yeah.
if it's a subject, I'm happy to. The improviser within me
Yeah.
loves to come up with things on the fly.
Okay. Well, I've been trying for my new book launch to get more like PR and media opportunities.
Mm.
So that's where my brain has been a lot lately.
Okay, let's say, have you ever tried your hand at PR, or have you ever worked with a company
Mm,
that does PR? What have your experiences been like? So
amazing.
we'll try that. Um, so you can answer the question of the week over at the Sell More Book Show After Party Facebook group or the Sell More Book Show website that is literally built on wooden planks at this point. Um, but I love that. Yeah, PR is super interesting. Um, it's one of those things that you see a lot of authors who are successful on TikTok who have risen to this level. They're sending out PR boxes and
Yeah.
and all of that good stuff to influencers. And what I keep hearing is the question, is it worth it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because
That's
they're
fair. Well, I feel like
expensive. It
it's
costs money.
expensive and probably kind of hard to track,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know?
Like an
So
ad
yeah.
in the New York Times or something, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. So true.
Yeah. But I'm interested to hear what other people's thoughts are. Definitely let us know. Let Shelby know, because she's got her book launch coming. But
Mhm.
you should all go to marketingbyshelby.com, because you can find out some of the great services Shelby offers Do you still do the Voxer coaching days? Because that
I
was so
do.
great.
I
So,
do. Yeah, they're a little bit more condensed now, but
yeah,
they are still Voxer coaching. We'll review all your social media. We'll chit chat back and forth. They're very productive usually.
yeah.
So yeah.
I've started integrating this into my own coaching. I feel like you showed me the
Oh,
way
great.
on this, because it's great to be able to just go back and forth rather than you have to be on a Zoom for 30
Yeah.
minutes at a certain time. You like have a thought 20 minutes later, and then you get to just send it.
Right.
Absolutely go check that out and all the wonderful stuff that Shelby has to offer on her website.
Thank you. Great chatting with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here today, Shelby. We'll be back for another week, but I really appreciate you being on the show today.
Absolutely. I hope our listeners took away some great tips on social media.
I hope so too. I'm sure they did. Awesome. Well, for Shelby, I'm Brian. I'll put in one last ad read here. If you are a 6-figure author or a 7-figure author, go reach out to me, Brian at sellingforauthors.com. We've got coaching, we've got ad agency, we've got all sorts of stuff to help you scale. Feel free, drop us a line, and we will help you out. And for everyone else, we've got free classes all the time. So remember to check those out. So for Shelby, I'm Brian. Have a great week of book selling, everybody. And we'll talk to you next week for episode 540. Bye.
Bye.